Welcome to What Grows. It's a podcast where we play with the connection between who we are and how we grow. I'm your host, Noella Mashi. So, Karen, you're currently with the Miller Center for Global Impact, where you've spent over 6 years supporting social entrepreneurs who are tackling some of the world's toughest challenges, from clean energy to water access to climate resilience. But last year, you took the leap yourself, launching Koshin, a sustainable water filter initiative that's now operating in Kenya. It's one thing to guide others through the uncertainty and the risk of building something meaningful. It's completely another to experience it firsthand. So I'm really looking forward to learning more about your journey from supporting social entrepreneurs to becoming one yourself and hear about the lessons that really can only come from being in the arena. So welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Noella. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
So, if you could give your life a title like it was a book, what would it be?
Oh, golly, a title. It's funny because I ask some of our entrepreneurs a similar question, and I think for me it'd be more of maybe a theme than a title at this stage in my life, and it would really just be kind of it's now or never, kind of go for it, because I really do feel like I'm at a season of life where now's the time to really start to do the things that I want to do and I'm passionate about, and if not now, when.
Mm. How did that season start?
I think, well, as you said, I've been at Miller Center for Global Impact for, golly, this is my 10th year, actually. I joined this organization the end of 2015. And I think for so long, it's been amazing to support impact entrepreneurs all over the world and help them scale their impact through my work here. But I think probably about maybe 2 years ago is when I kind of got the itch or the nudge to want to try something on my own. And I think it kind of started from just seeing a lot of things in the ecosystem, especially around water, and then just wanting to do something there just to see if I could do it, for one, and to see if I could use the resources and the network that Miller Center is a part of, leverage that in a way to help me actually try something out and do it maybe a little bit quicker, because I had access to all these resources and put myself to the test. So I think, yeah, probably about 2 years ago is when I really got that nudge.
Hmm. I want to dig a little deeper into the nudge because I know that
Okay.
for some people it's kind of slow burn. It's something that's the back of your mind for many years and then you're just like, let's do it. But there's others who wake up and have an idea downloaded to them and that day they're like, I guess it's time to change my life.
Yes, well, if we're gonna go down it, let's go down it. I mean, that's exactly what happened to me. So probably, I don't think it's a coincidence that also about 2 years ago, I felt the need to access something or channel something a bit higher than myself. You could call it whatever you want, tapping into your higher self, tapping into the universe, tapping into source, tapping into, God energy, whatever you want to call it. I just felt this need to want to tap into whatever that was. And I have a lot of friends that work in sort of the holistic, spiritual, mystical space. And it was through these conversations with some of my friends that I started to really get into meditation. And it just started really, really slowly, just sitting for 5 minutes each morning, just kind of letting my mind settle, and just kind of experiment with myself and see what would happen. And then I guess that really stuck, and it became just a really big part of my life and a big part of my practice. And so every day, I meditate, and for quite a while now. And it was actually through one of my meditations, that I got a vision for a water filter, which is
Mhm.
completely random. I didn't really know what I was looking at. I have a background in environmental studies and sustainability science, and I'd taken some, hydrology classes, but I'm not an engineer. But for some reason, I got this, I guess, a download of a filter. And then about maybe 2 months after that, one of our entrepreneurs here at Miller Center was applying for one of our programs. And I remember looking at his business plan, and I turned the page, and on the page was exactly what was in the vision that I got
Whoa.
from. I've never had anything like that happen before in my life. I haven't actually really shared this story with a lot of people, but it was the business is Kova, and they do water chlorinators in Latin America. And what's beautiful about their model is it's super simple. It's it's PVC piping with a chlorine tablet. And I really loved that because it was so simple and it could be easily applied in a lot of rural settings. And I knew right away that's the market I wanted to also work in. And so shortly after that, I called the founder, his name is Wes, and said, hey, I love this filter. I really would like to do something with this, but maybe adapt it to more of a sub-Saharan African context. And then he basically was like, yeah, go for it. You can use this technology, however you want to adapt it. Let me know and let me know how I can help you. And so that was kind of like the original spark. And then shortly after that, I went to a conference in Kenya. It's called the SanCalp Africa Conference. And so I was sitting with this kind of vision of a water filter chlorinator. I didn't really know yet what I wanted to do with it, but I went to this conference through Miller Center. So SanCalp, just to back up, is one of the largest impact investing conferences on the continent. We have a lot of Miller Center enterprises that go to this. It's a great networking opportunity. So I went there, and I met with another friend of mine who's also a Miller Center entrepreneur who also works in the water sector. His name's Galen. He runs a company called Jivu. So at that conference, I met with him and said, hey, I've got this idea. I'm not really sure what to do with it, but I think I want to adapt it to this setting. And within weeks, talking to him, I was able to take the water chlorinator from Kova and tweak it a little bit. And then that basically became what is now the Koshin water filter. So that, long story short, like that was kind of, that's how all of that sort of unfolded. It was just sort of like getting these visions, meeting people at the right time and place to help me kind of tweak the design, and then finding the right partners to implement. And, all of that happened very, very quickly. It was almost like, I don't know if you've ever had this in your life where things just sort of like align, and like right when that I felt like I needed to stop, like something or somebody would show up in my life to help me move forward. And it just felt like the universe was saying like, you should probably do this. So I just kind of followed that. And then, yeah, so we ended up implementing Koshin this past March in a village called Kathangachini. It's about 5 hours outside of Kenya. So we installed the Koshin filter in 2 schools, which now provide access to safe drinking water to 854 students. So yeah, so that's kind of been the journey.
Whoa. I love that. Fireworks in my brain for that because, first of all of the time that you took to listen through your meditation and that practice, it is not easy to meditate, at least not for me. I can't do it. Definitely not consistently. And even when I do sit down, I can't do it for very long. And I can only imagine, yeah, how much stillness is required to have something like this downloaded into your brain. But when that happens, and then when there's all of that synchronicity, it's just
Yeah,
such a clear message.
it is. Yeah, I think that's been a big learning these past 2 years too, is listening and being able to really quiet the mind, because I've always had trouble with that. I always have a monkey mind. My mind is thinking about a million things all at once, and learning just to be still and just observing yourself, so to speak. And when the moment you can do that, that's when all of these cool things start to happen. And so that's exactly how we were able to figure out what to do with Koshin, is like through that stillness.
Mm. And what do you see yourself achieving through Koshin?
Well, I think there's a few levels there. At like the first kind of obvious level is the very tangible, I hope, impact that Koshin will have on providing access to safe drinking water, especially in rural areas. So for us, it felt like working with schools, especially, just felt like where we could have the most impact, and also having it be an intentionally low tech water filtration system so that it's easily maintainable, it's easily replaceable if parts break, so that we can ensure the long term sustainability. Like that was always the vision of Koshin. and also to be chemical free. So we use, we don't use chlorine. We use a locally available carbon also. So the vision there was to have something low tech that could be maintained and really get the buy-in of communities to maintain it so that they have the ownership. Like that was always a very strong thing for me right from the get. And then also, I really believe in the value of partnership. I think that's another reason why Koshin could move, we could grow so fast, is because we leveraged local partnerships on the ground who had the trust of the communities. I'm just some random American girl. And so, but the fact that I was working with a local partner called Core Africa to help us find the right communities, the right schools, right away we could have those relationships. So I think collaboration, long term collaboration on the ground to come up with sustainable solutions is another big vision. Um, and I think another thing I didn't mention is that we also work with engineering students. So for the first pilot, we worked with engineering students from Penn State to build the prototype of the Koshin filter. And that was like another layer of impact that I honestly didn't anticipate would happen, is just actually working with these college kids, bringing them to Kenya to do the installation and actually seeing the wheels turn in their minds saying like, aha, I can actually do these kinds of really cool, impactful things with my civil engineering degree. And just seeing that click in their minds was amazing. And so for our second pilot, we're continuing to work with college students actually here at Santa Clara University. So that's another thing that I care passionately about, is working with change makers here at universities to help them think about really tangible ways that they can lead purpose driven lives. So that's another thing I want to achieve with Koshin.
Mm.
And then for a deeply like personal reason, it was just to see if I could do it. Like honestly, that like working with impact entrepreneurs for so many years now, like and all over the world, I really wanted to see if I could walk the walk, because we give our entrepreneurs, curriculum on how to develop frameworks around their business models, how to track their impact, how to fundraise, how to come up with financials, like all of these things that you need to be a successful impact business. But I wanted to see if I could actually take all of these and do it myself. So it was kind of just a way just to see. And I also feel like um, in order to really support people doing this kind of impactful work, I need to understand what it really means. Like, because I can understand from a certain level, like the things that they're dealing with on the ground, but unless I actually do it and roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty, I feel like I couldn't fully understand. So I kind of wanted to just walk in the shoes of all of these amazing women and men that we've worked with for so many years.
Yeah. I can really relate to that. And at the risk of kind of projecting my perspective onto you, so tell me where we differ or where we're similar, it's that I've spent the past 12 years kind of being 2IC, as my friend Bonnie calls it, second in command,
Ah,
to someone who's like a very visionary leader. And they explain the vision, I see it, and I am essential to making that vision become a reality, but it's not ever really mine. And I was
mm,
wondering about this, and I was wondering about this especially as I started my independent consulting practice. Like, why haven't I fully led the ship in that way? And I think a big part of it for me, and I think this question needs to be answered for me to be successful in this next leg.
mm,
Um, a coach of mine has said there's something that I'm discovering around, like I understand the vision, but I'm so concerned about removing my own sense of like guilt, and sometimes
mm.
like guilt about being born into a privileged situation, or I'm so concerned
Yeah,
about making sure my work is perfect
right.
that I, one, haven't taken the time to acknowledge my own capabilities, and two,
Mm,
haven't really looked up and
mm,
fallen in love with the problem in the way that my CEOs have.
right.
And so the result of that is I do really hard work to make the world a better place, and I work hard at it because
Yeah.
I feel bad. But
Mm,
the people that I most admire aren't even listening so much to whether or not they feel bad. They're looking at the possibility. They're able to be courageous about, here's a problem and I think I'm being asked to solve it. So here we go,
yeah.
And
Yes.
that's
Yes.
kind of what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, 100%. And thank you for sharing that, by the way. I think it's so true. Like, I always honestly kind of saw myself in a similar position as like following the leader that has that vision and then helping them make that vision a reality. Um, and I think like with Koshin in particular, it was really like I had seen, there's so many great companies doing amazing things in the water sector. There's so many wonderful technologies around water filtration. And I think I kind of just wanted to go almost in the opposite direction and go like what if we just like took out all the crazy technology and just made it like super duper simple. And I felt like I was just at a stage where I could probably just go for it and test it out, given that I have access. Like, I'm not an engineer, but I know who to ask and like who to connect to make that a reality. And so I think that's where I was like, okay, I think I could actually do something here, and just kind of go with it and not really worry about where it was going to land, but just kind of following that spark and just see if we could make it happen. And it came from just curiosity. It came from a very like just curious, honest place, and like with no expectations whatsoever. Um, so
Mm.
yeah.
I'd love to hear a bit more about that. Like, what are the skills you have now that will make Koshin successful? And what are the skills you want to learn or need to learn in the next 12 months?
Hmm. So I think um, probably what I've learned to be good at is how to be a connector, just knowing how to connect different stakeholders that have different skill sets that can complement each other. So I feel like that's where I have expertise, and knowing how things kind of fit together, and being able to communicate things to different people in different ways so that it's relatable to them. And I think being able to excite people about coming with you on a journey. I think I've learned how to do that as well. I think I'm always learning. Like I can always improve, and I think where I would like to see myself sort of strengthen is honestly it's around the fundraising side of things. And I think every entrepreneur out there, that's like a constant part of the journey. Like even if you're in a financially stable place, like you're always going to be thinking about where your next round of fundraising comes from, and that's something I really want to work on. So for Koshin, we're just, we're really tiny. We just did one little pilot and we were able to fundraise, basically doing like a friends and family raise. And we recently got ourselves set up as a legal entity, as a public benefit corp, with the long term vision of being able to raise more serious investment down the road. So I would really like to get my feet wet in being able to raise like critical amounts of capital to grow our business. I think I 100% want to keep growing and learning how to how to be a better fundraiser for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you said to me that one of your skills is to excite people about how to come along with you on a journey, it feels like that's it. That's the transferable skill that'll get you, the
It's
resources.
I think that's very true, and I've learned that there's so many ways to tell a story. So there's telling the story about your own personal journey and your own experience, but also being able to tell your story coherently through numbers. Like that's really really important, and that's kind of just the reality, right? So being able to bridge like that personal story with the numbers, and then sharing it in a way that resonates, that really is a skill. I think it can be learned, but it is also a skill that can be um, honed over time. And yeah, I would really like to continue to work on that, or at least find the right partners that can help me with all of that. So
Mm.
yeah.
It really, I am, yeah, I would call myself spiritual. And it really, from what you've told me, it feels like you are meant to do this work. It's come to you and it's yours to do. And that's really, really exciting. I just love seeing when people are doing what they're meant to be doing and it like just feels so aligned. Um, there's, I think I want to just shift gears a little bit and take us to the beginning. So, what formed you? Like, was there a moment in your childhood or your early adulthood when you first felt drawn to work that mattered beyond yourself?
Yes. So I think I think it really, I give a lot of credit to my mom and dad. So both my parents are civil servants, and I think growing up in a household where my father is a judge and my mom's a teacher. They're both retired, but they both worked, for the state for years and years. And I think seeing them work in service to others and also valuing education, like those were always really big priorities in our household. And I think being raised by parents that really always encouraged me to get outside and to explore. Um, they always encouraged us, my brother and I, to travel and to experience other cultures. Like that was really important. And so I think having my parents as role models, and then also being encouraged to explore, and then also to really take the time to figure out what you want to do with your life. Like my parents were always like, don't worry about getting married or having kids, like focus on how you want to grow as a person before you focus on settling down, like that, because they did the same thing. And so that really stuck with me from a very early age. So I think, yeah, just coming from a background like that with parents that were so supportive. And also I think I've always been really fired up around justice and injustice and inequities. That I don't know why, that's just always been something that really I don't want to say like angers me, but I would just always get just deep, deep rage whenever I would see any kind of injustice against a friend of mine or against myself, or being a woman, like especially being a woman and being a woman of a mixed race background, like anything around those issues, especially as I got older in high school and in college, certainly. I would just get so angry, and I just didn't understand why a lot of these just inequities existed. And I think as I've gotten older, I mean, I still get enraged so easily. It's actually a little too scary how fast I can default into getting mad. And it's like, actually, can we just like take a step back and channel that anger into something that will actually be helpful? And so that's been a process for me as well. But I think, yeah, just not being able to sit back and just accept things as like, oh, this is just how it is. It's just going to be messed up for some people and not others. And for me, I'm like, no, like that, no, like I don't accept that. And so I think that's just kind of inherently how I've always been. And I think applying that to the work that I do here, very much, I feel like I'm in the right place, because all these entrepreneurs that we work with, everybody that works at Miller Center, I think feels the same way. Like we don't accept things as they are. We don't accept these global inequities. We don't accept the environment being degraded. Like that's no, like that. We can't live in a world like that. We'd much rather do something about it than then just sit back and say like, oh, that's just how it is. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
In this in this time that we find ourselves in, there's a lot of complicated things happening in this world, and because of that, a lot of helplessness that I'm sensing, at least. And I like watching ads because I feel like ads tell us a lot about our culture,
Mm,
and tell us about what how young people are thinking if their ads targeted to young people. And I was looking at a Nike ad recently, and the Nike ad was, their slogan is "Just do it."
right.
This ad started with "Why do it?" And it was
Mm,
really about, why bother to get up in the morning? Why bother to try to hit that impossible shot? Why bother to anything? Um, and I think that is really reflective of this kind of sense of paralysis that people are feeling because of the awareness and the helplessness. Um, what is it like to work at the Miller Center, to be you, surrounded by people like your parents who have raised you right? Um, in this day, in this time, are you cocooned from that helplessness? Do you feel it too? How does it manifest?
Yeah, oh golly, I think sometimes I don't want to say it, but I feel like I'm in a little bit in denial about the state of our country, the US. And I feel like sometimes I know more about what's going on in Kenya and Rwanda than I do in my own backyard, because it's too much almost. It's almost too much to really deal with the situation that we're in. That being said, I think that's why I like working at a university, being a part of Santa Clara University. So Miller Center, we're a center of distinction within Santa Clara, and our office is physically here on campus. In fact, I'm in one of the conference rooms in one of the buildings here on campus. And I think when you're at a university, I think a lot of things around justice and politics and climate like that just comes up when you're on a college campus, and I love being a part of that energy because you see all of these young change makers also saying like, no, we don't accept this, and like, what can we do? And it can be something as simple as just, having like some kind of a rally outside just to spread awareness. I mean, maybe it's not going to move the needle on these bigger issues, but it's something. And I think we'd much rather do something than nothing at all. And I think also being able to work with students. So at Miller Center, we have a fellowship, and we also have internships. So I actually get to work directly with a lot of our students, and just being able to talk about things that are keeping them up at night, and giving them that reassurance that, yeah, these are troubling times, but you have the opportunity to also do something. And I think just being able to be around young people like that, gives me so much hope. Like, there is so much hope, especially with this generation, being around Gen Zs. Like, it's very clear that this current generation of college kids, like, they want to lead a life of, that connects their head to their heart. Like, that's very apparent.
Mm.
And I feel like I've really seen that shift within the last, even 10 years of how students think about their vocation, not just a job after grad, but like a vocational discernment, right? Like, how do you lead a life, have a career, but also have it be a part of you? So that just it gives me so much joy. And I feel, yeah, these are scary times, but at the same time, like, we will get through this because I'm so inspired by all of these young change makers.
Oh, that is encouraging. I feel like I kind of needed to hear that too, honestly.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you are working across quite a spectrum of people.
Yes.
You've got the young change makers, you've got the entrepreneurs and your colleagues at the Miller Center. Now you're working in Kenya.
Yes.
So you're partnering across culture, geography, resources.
Yes.
Um, let's talk about partnership for a bit. How do you think about authentic partnership, especially in situations where the power dynamics are inherently unequal?
Right. Right, 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 right. Yeah, this is something I think about all the time. I think especially, well, in different circles, especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're fundraising, if you're with an investor, there's so many dynamics at play. There's research done around, women entrepreneurs raise significantly less because of, how they're perceived and how they communicate
Wow.
versus men. Like, there's so much research on all of this, and um, we're very aware of those dynamics. I'm also very aware of the dynamics, again, being an American woman, like, working in Kenya. Like, I'm very much aware of how I'm perceived when I'm there, which again is why it's so important to me that I work with local counterparts on the ground if I'm going to do work in that part of the world. Um, I think it really starts with trust, at the core. Like, that's the foundation of everything. And really taking the time to build that trust and get to know people and understand their context, their cultural context. Cultural humility is so important. That's something we also teach our students before we have them go, do their summer fellowships in different countries. We take a whole quarter to talk about things like that, and not just go out there with your own. You're going to have your own assumptions because you have your own frame of mind and your own cultural context and where you grew up and all that. But just being aware that you have these sort of, unconscious or conscious biases, just knowing that you have those, I think, is the first step. And then if you are confronted with them, being open to talking about them. I think that's just so important. And Miller, we take that very seriously. We take a lot of time to unpack that. When we work with our entrepreneurs and we put them through these sort of mock investor sessions where they practice sort of presenting their business to investors, we actually tell the investors to be aware of their own unconscious bias. I think it's so it's not talked about often enough, and I think that's the problem. And I think if we are open to having these conversations, we can we can just come up with so many solutions, and we can be just so much
Mm.
more equitable all across the board. So yeah, these are things I think about all the time, and it's important. It's important to talk about power dynamics. And I'm also not afraid now. I think for so many years I was afraid to call things out if they didn't sit right with me for a long, long time, especially as like a young woman. In certain settings where I was often, either the youngest or one of the only women sitting at the table, you naturally just kind of like close in on yourself. But I think it just comes with age, and also just me not wanting to put up with things anymore. I'm less afraid to kind of speak up and say things and call people out. And especially like, well, the older like white guys at the table, which don't get me wrong, I love the old white. My dad's an old white guy, so it's like but I love him so dearly. So I'm not trying to call anybody out, but I'm just very aware of these dynamics. And yeah, I think just not being afraid to talk to somebody when you're saying when things don't feel right, I think is really important.
Yeah. And I would say, in my experience, there are consequences sometimes, not positive consequences for calling things out.
Yes.
And then the question for me becomes, am I willing to deal with this? I understand that there will be a consequence. Am I willing to deal with it? And like 70% of the time, yes, I'm willing to deal with the consequence of calling this thing out. But 30% of the time, no, it's just not in my best interest to call this person out, you know?
Gosh, I know you bring up such a good point because I think that's really important too. I think coming back to like me being enraged and angry and calling out, just I think like again in my younger years it would have been easy for me just to get so angry and call things out. And now I think also there's certain ways you have to be a little bit strategic with how you communicate, especially when you are aware of different power dynamics and really who holds the power, and understanding how to communicate things in a certain way. It does take a little bit of finessing, and I think especially if you're working, for example, at a university, like there's different levels of bureaucratic things that you just have to navigate, and understanding who to talk to for what. And I think that just comes with experience. And I'm not trying to say that like, you know, um, lets people off the hook. I'm not saying that at all. I do think there are ways to get your point across, and sometimes you have to be a little bit um, nimble with how you do that.
Yeah, it's a whole kind of unspoken skill set that I think needs to be formalized. This
Yeah,
very specific kind of, I don't know, avenue of emotional intelligence, how to
yes,
navigate things.
completely agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the tension in any organization that raises philanthropic funds, in my opinion, is that the client is not the customer. You
Mm,
are selling something to foundations or whatever, corporate donors, but you are also trying to sell something or donate something to your clients.
mm,
And in my experience, getting the philanthropic donors as close as possible to the clients so that their perspective can overlap even just a little bit helps
mm,
everyone to make better decisions. But
right.
that's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard, especially with geographic separation.
Yeah.
How do you kind of see this problem being handled? Maybe it's by the entrepreneurs that you work with, or even at Koshin.
Yeah. So I think, um, yeah, so at Miller Center, we are global. We've worked with more than 1,500 global enterprises all over the world. I mean, in sub-Saharan Africa alone, we've got more than 130 just in Kenya. And yet, we are fundraising from a lot of donors. Many of them are here in Silicon Valley, not all of them, but many of them are. So you're right. How do you connect the impact on the ground that these enterprises are having with the people that are supporting your work? And I think we've done different ways of kind of bridging that. One actually is we do these immersion trips, usually annually, and we bring a curated group of women and men that are big supporters of Miller Center in Santa Clara. and we bring them actually physically to different parts of the world to physically meet our enterprises and meet those enterprises clients or customers, or see the products that they're building firsthand. And I think when you go on those trips, like I've been on a few, you can see also how these things really transform these folks. And it has actually a long term, tremendous ripple impact because these folks then come back and then share that with their community. And then that just like automatically broadens our network. So that's been one practical way that we've been able to kind of bridge that gap. And then also, we bring our enterprises, some of our entrepreneurs physically here to Santa Clara. We do an annual program called In Residence where they come to Santa Clara for a week to go through programming. And that's really amazing because we've got everybody coming here. We've got some of our mentors, we've got our some of our funders, we've got Santa Clara faculty and students, and it's just this amazing group of people coming together with the sole purpose of supporting the entrepreneurs. And when you have that many people come together, it just also, you can just see how the impact just has this like multiplier effect. So for Miller Center, that's been really great to like bring the entrepreneurs to to the people that are supporting the community that we're building. That's been really impactful. And then for me, strategically, we want to do more in-person events around the world where there's sort of hubs of entrepreneurs working. Like for example, I was in Kenya over the summer, and we did a East Africa. We have an East Africa regional hub where we had a dinner in Nairobi and brought together 20, almost close to 30 enterprises for a dinner, just to have them work together and share, share their wisdom. And so we want to cultivate more of these sort of regional hubs as well, to build this community. So nothing beats in person is what I'm learning.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I feel similarly. Having been on both sides now, what do entrepreneurs actually need that they don't always ask for? And what did you need that surprised you?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it kind of boils down into three buckets. I think on the one end, entrepreneurs, you're always going to be fundraising. That's just part of being, it's part and parcel to being an entrepreneur. Like you're always going to be thinking about where that next round's coming from. So I think the fundraising is like one of the big buckets. And then I would say the second big bucket is support around like organizational capacity. So, if you're a startup, you need a certain level of support to think about growing your business. But once you have a set group of people, you've got, managers, you've got, coordinators, and you're ready to scale to maybe another region or you're ready to launch another project, you then need to think about how that organization grows to support and accommodate that. So I think entrepreneurs need that kind of support as well, especially as they continue to scale. So thinking through almost like your enterprise is this like beautiful organism that just needs the right food and resources to accommodate all to accommodate them as they grow through adolescence and maturity. So that's the other bucket I would say. And then the third bucket, it's the person, dude. It's like the person behind the enterprise. Like it's humans at the end of the day that are driving this work. And so that's been a really big one for me, is like supporting the human behind the business, especially the founder or the CEO or the executive director, the one leading, right? They they're the skill set you need as a startup founder is very different than if you're leading a group of, over 100 people in multiple countries. It's a very different skill set as a leader you need than as a startup founder. So navigating, how do you acquire those skills? How do you think about leadership? How do you maybe think, okay, maybe it's time for me to actually bring on somebody else that can carry this forward? So I think having that kind of leadership support, leadership development is another area that our entrepreneurs definitely need. And I think that's something I really have honed in on, especially with Koshin. I mean, right now Koshin is a tiny little startup, but my dream is that eventually we'll grow bigger. I would love to have a country manager in Kenya. So when that time comes, like I think I would really need that support to help me think through some of these things and like what do I need in terms of my skill set so that I can accommodate that growth. Um, so yeah, so I think it's those three
Mm.
buckets. So it's fundraising, organizational capacity, and then leadership.
Yeah. Have you received support or had a memorable conversation that was really helpful in your Koshin journey?
Yes. I think what's been great about Koshin is I've been blessed to have a few mentors and advisors to kind of walk me through this journey. And I never took that for granted. Like basically from day one, I had a couple of folks where I would just be on like a monthly standing call, just 30 minutes a month. And it was really a great way for me to just like gut check things, you know, and if I doubted myself, I could just get on this call with this person and be like, hey, I'm thinking about this, but I don't know. And right away, you know, these folks have like walked through a lot of these things already. So just having those conversations with them, I think it really saved me months, if not years of probably mistakes, just because they were able to tell me in a 30-minute call, you know, what I should be thinking through. So I really can't emphasize enough the importance of having like trusted advisors and mentors and like finding your people right from the start. And I think there's so much value in that. And I think if you're a startup founder or even, you know, leading a big business, continuing to have those kinds of mentors in your life is so profoundly impactful.
Yeah. Can you tell me about any specific conversation where there was like an existential stuckness that someone helped you through?
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, there's quite a few. Well, I think um, so. There was a moment with Koshin. You know, we had done our installation and we put our two filters onto the schools on their water storage tanks, and we wanted to test the water quality just to make sure that things checked out. And I was concerned because the first time we did our first round of testing, the results came back a little bit, for lack of a better word, fuzzy. That because the way that we had collected our water sample, it just was contaminated, unfortunately. And you know, we tested it. We're 5 hours outside of Nairobi. Our lab was in Nairobi, so just traveling with the water sample, you know, not refrigerated. It just we had a contaminated sample. And so I got those results back. And I remember talking to one of my advisors who also runs a water company. And I said, hey, look, these are the water results that we got. I really, you know, we need to talk about this. And we really do need to talk about this. And they were saying, no, 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 don't worry. This is actually natural. I'm like, they're never going to trust me ever again. We got these water samples. They're like, no, no, don't worry. Just take another sample. It's going to be okay. Like, and then we can compare the results and, you know, it's fine. And also think about like, what's the alternative? Also, the alternative is like, they would just be kind of drinking from the river. And so, that was a real existential moment for me, like truly it's like I feel this obligation. At the same time, I was being told like it's actually fine, this is very normal to have these kinds of tests and just do them again. And now that you know the proper way to take a sample and everything, just do it again. And so that kind of gave me like the reassurance that I wasn't like this complete failure, because I really did feel like a huge failure in that moment. Like we had come all this way, we installed these filters, and then the water sample was like, you know, it didn't, the quality was so. Anyways, long story short, we did the tests again. They came out great. It was fine. But there was a moment where I was just truly doubting myself. And it was my friend that said it's fine. This happens all the time, especially in these contexts in these very rural settings. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but
You
there
need
was a real
someone to,
yeah. I mean, you really just need someone just to be like, no, it's fine, Karen. Just go with, just take another sample. So
yeah, put things in perspective there. Yeah. Oh gosh, don't we all just need that? And I mean, it sounds like you, I mean, obviously take this work very, very seriously. How much of Koshin's success is tied into your personal success?
I think Koshin has been very personal right from the start. I mean, it all started from my own spiritual practice. Like it started from there. So this journey has very much been deeply connected to how I grow spiritually. It's very aligned, I would say. And I think these last 2 years, I've kind of almost gone like I've done a deep dive into my spirituality. Like I'm way deep into it now. So that could be like a whole other conversation we could talk about. But I think they're one and the same for me, and I feel um, so connected to sort of like this collective, to like to the universe. I've never felt as deeply connected in this way to something bigger than myself than I have through Koshin. And I think it was, Koshin, it wasn't easy. We were able to move fast, but it wasn't easy. It was actually quite stressful. I spent all of 2024, every day having 5 a.m. calls and then going to do my work at Miller Center. And it kind of did take a toll on me, but I'm so glad that I did it because I just feel like I've awakened in these different ways and I've unlocked different things about myself that I didn't even know existed. Um, and I think once you do that, once you see that side of yourself, it's like you realize, oh, how can I live any other way? So it's very personal for me. At the same time, it's also about everybody. It's about collaboration. So it's like personal, but it's also about working with a lot of different stakeholders to come up with solutions. So, but I think that's kind of how the world works, right? I think we're all connected to each other. We're all a part of this bigger collective at the end of the day. And so, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
even know. Sorry, I don't know if that answered the question
It
or not.
really does. Thank you for that. I would love to hear a little, at least some part about your spiritual journey, if you're okay to share that. Like, what do you, when you talk about spirituality, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think so. I grew up, in a kind of Presbyterian background, not really feeling deeply connected to that religion, but that it was kind of just like what's kind of what we did. That's how we were raised. But I never really felt like a deeper connection to God or Jesus growing up. But I always felt like there was something else out there. There was just something bigger than myself. And I think, yeah, 2 years ago when I kind of got this like nudge, like there has to be something else out there. There is. How could there not be? And when I started to meditate, it just opened up my eyes to like I am nothing and I'm everything. Like I just felt like I could feel and connect with everything around me. I don't know how to explain it, but it was beautiful and it was painful and it was just something that was undeniable to me. And it just felt like pure love. And so once you tap into that, you realize that it's all going to be okay. Like I truly do feel like we're all just like souls having a human experience, and we chose to be here at this point in time. Like there's a reason that you and I are here at this point in time. And we're figuring it out all together, and it's beautiful. It's hard, but it's beautiful, and I can't think of any other way to be. And for my spirituality, I think it's just tapping into that and tapping into the love and seeing people as they are without judgment, but still loving people exactly how they are. Without having any expectations in return, like that's been a big part of my journey, also. And yeah, I've also done like a deep dive into like energy and reading energy. That's been a part of my journey. So I've been studying Reiki on the side, and just understanding how energy works and how currents work and how flows work and how that can impact other people. So I've been studying that just on the side, and that very much aligns with the work that I'm doing at Koshin. And I've also done a deep dive with crystals. So deeply into crystals right now. But it's all just fun. Also, I get joy out of it, and it makes me feel connected to something, or it helps me tap into something bigger than myself to do all these different things. So
Yeah, wow. And that courage, I just sense that courage to look and to seek. And also I think it takes courage to be willing to step up to the plate when you're called. I think we're all called to different things, and some of us accept the invitation and some of us don't. I think even when it's hard, it changes something in you when you say yes.
yes.
Um, what does life outside of work look like? Is it any different now versus before you started Koshin?
Yes, I think it does look a little bit different. I think, well, I think with Miller Center, I always wanted to lead a life of purpose, but I think with Koshin, it's kind of like kicked that up into high gear even more so. And I think and it's such a big part of my life now. And I think it's figuring out how that fits in with all these other aspects of my life, because I'm also a mother. I have a partner. I also have a whole, family. So thinking about how all those dynamics fit in with leading a life of purpose. And I think they don't have to be separate. I think that's something I've learned in the last few years as well. I think before I tried to keep everything very kind of siloed, like this is Koshin, this is Miller Center, this is my family, this is, my whatever, like I work out, like all of these things just felt so kind of disjointed. And I realized that in order to have true alignment, they all kind of need to be integrated and connected in a way. And I know a lot of people say, oh, you have to find the work life balance. For me, it's more like finding a flow. It's never going to be completely balanced. Some things will be more full here and lower here, and that's okay. And I think it's being okay to find that rhythm and that flow of your life, and having it weave together in this beautiful way. That's something that I think I've definitely, my life has changed so much in that way, just shifting my perspective about how I think about my life in all of these different facets.
Mm, mhm. Okay, so I guess this is kind of second last question, and it ties into yeah all the changes that come with starting your own entrepreneurship journey. Just what is your relationship with uncertainty, and has that changed?
Oh golly, yes. I feel like so many things are uncertain, and I think it's being okay to be okay with uncertainty, for sure. I think a lot of us tend to want to plan. I'm very much a planner. I like to map things out, and I like to have my schedules, and I like to block off things, and I like to know how things are going to happen, and I have my notes and all of that. And I think it's still good to do all that and be prepared, but also realize that, it's okay if things don't go exactly the way you want them to be. And being okay with that, I think, is also such an amazing lesson. And that's also what we try to impart on our students. Our students right now, our fellows, they're seniors. I can't tell you how many seniors I've had reach out to me just in the last 2 weeks saying, like, I don't know what I'm going to do after I graduate. Everything's so unclear. And it's like, I think we've all been there. Like, I've definitely been there. And I think just giving those students the tools to navigate uncertainty. And that's actually part of the journey. And that's, and being okay that you're exactly where you need to be in this point in time. And things will find a way to work themselves out for you. The path will become clear. Maybe not when you're like right on the path, but it does become clear. And just trusting, I think trusting that journey is so important. And so,
Yeah. Yeah,
trusting.
I feel like I really needed to hear that. I like to journal, and I've been journaling a lot about how a lot of people learn by doing. So you kind of learn something and then you do it, and in doing it, you learn. Um, I learn by doing, but also I learn by teaching. And sometimes I go
Yeah.
straight from I have no clue to I am teaching other people about this thing, and we're learning together.
Totally, yes. Exactly.
Yeah. And the uncertainty goes as far as I don't know what my next sentence is going to be, but somehow it all comes together when I'm fully
Yeah.
physically present, you
Yes.
know?
Yes. Yes. I completely agree with you on that. And I don't know, I feel like the universe really does have a way of like letting you know exactly where you're going to be when you need to be there. Like I truly do believe that. And then just trusting that, like let go of your death grip on the steering wheel for, and just, trust that you're going to be exactly where you need to be, and it's all going to work itself out. I really do believe that.
Mm, that's my homework is I need to go. I need to listen. I need to listen because I I haven't been listening so much. So thank you for that. All right, my last question, just about the future, looking ahead. What version of yourself are you growing towards? Like, what kind of person do you want to be at the end of all this building and creating?
Hmm. I mean, I hope I'm a person of integrity. I'm hoping I'm a person that people can trust, and maybe be a source for people to turn to if they need help. Because I want to be that person, not just for my family, but for people that I work with here and through Koshin. Um, I do think I still have a lot to do. I know I have a lot to do yet. I'm not done, like, especially with Koshin. Like, this is just the beginning. And I think being able to withhold that vision and withhold um, my purpose and never straying from that, just keeping that as your North Star in whatever you do. Um, that's that's how I would like to continue to grow, is become somebody that people can look to, like I said, to support, but also being able to call myself out on my own. I'm just a human. I'm just a little human. Like, I'm not perfect, and realizing that at the end of the day, and just having that humility also. And also, I think it's like, yeah, we're doing serious work, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. I think that's a big
Mm.
part of it, is just finding the joy and the irreverence in, like, the everyday. Because I mean, why else should we live if we're not being happy and having fun? I think that's a huge lesson for me also. It's like, just take the
Yeah.
time to, like, have some fun and laugh. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Me too. Thank you so much, Karen. This was
Thank
lovely.
you. Thank you, Noella.
If you enjoyed this episode, please rate the show. It really makes a difference. I'm also always looking for guests who enjoy meaningful conversations. If that sounds like you, send me a message with what you'd like to talk about, and I'll get back to you. Thanks for listening.